The fire alarm started shrieking at 3:14 a.m., and that was before the glass shattered. I was standing in the kitchen with my hand still on the coffee mug I'd dropped, cream and shards puddling under my bare feet, when I realized the explosion hadn't come from the oven or the microwave. It came from the living room window. Someone had thrown a brick through the actual window in the middle of the night into our house. That was the first moment I realized my stepmother might actually kill me. Not metaphorically. Not in the soul-crushing passive-aggressive insults over dinner kind of way. No, I mean with her actual bare hands. Like legally, as in, someone would eventually find my body under the garden bed she never lets me weed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Hi, I'm Violet. I turned 19 last month, though you wouldn't know it based on the way my family treats me. Unless the law changed recently, adults usually get to choose when they eat, shower, or breathe air. But apparently I missed the memo. Because according to my stepmother Marlene, I'm too immature to handle those freedoms without turning the whole house into a hellscape of mold and moral decay. I didn't plan to be Cinderella in a Target hoodie. I didn't wake up one morning like, yes, please, give me a life where my dad thinks unloading the dishwasher is character development, and my stepmother thinks I'm the intern she didn't ask for. But here we are. And just to clarify, no, I didn't break the window. That would imply I have agency, which I don't. Because Marlene made sure I lost that around the time I started growing boobs and accidentally eclipsed her daughter's GPA. Ever since then, I've been cast as the domestic disappointment who apparently can't even fold towels without threatening the stability of the entire household. The wildest part? My dad acts like he doesn't see any of it, as if he genuinely believes the laundry magically folds itself or the toilets self-sanitize out of loyalty to the family name. The man once spent 20 minutes looking for his sunglasses while wearing them. But somehow, he's convinced that Marlene's constant sighing, slamming cabinets, and listing off my infractions, like it's her daily podcast, is just normal parental concern. She doesn't scream, that would be too obvious. No, Marlene's abuse is quieter, sharper, like paper cuts in the dark, slicing you 1,000 times before you even realize you're bleeding. Her words are syrup sweet with acid underneath. Her favorite line lately is, "Don't worry, sweetie, you'll understand when you have your own family, if you ever get that far." Always with that mocking little laugh like I'm too dense to catch the insult. And my dad? He just nods like she's reciting scripture. I used to think he was oblivious. Now I think he just doesn't want the hassle. As long as his beer's cold and the TV remote's charged, he'll pretend he doesn't see his daughter being turned into a glorified live-in maid with a side of emotional punching bag. I used to count down to my birthday. Now I count down to the moment I can get out of this house without setting off one of her landmines. But today was different. Because when that brick came through the window, it wasn't just glass that shattered. It was the last sliver of belief I had that things might get better on their own. Because the note tied to the brick didn't say, "Get out." It said something way worse. It said, "I know what you did, and so does she." And I have absolutely no idea who she is. But I know this much. If Marlene finds out whatever that is, I'm already dead. By the time my dad finally stumbled downstairs in his boxers, squinting like the light had personally offended him, I'd already cleaned up most of the glass. Not because I was trying to be helpful. I just didn't want Marlene to wake up and turn the whole thing into a TED Talk about my emotional instability and how violence follows dysfunction. He scratched his head, looked at the taped-up window and said, "What the hell happened?" Like I was supposed to know the answer. Like I had time between boiling pasta and bleaching the grout to orchestrate a domestic terror event. I said the truth. Someone threw a brick through the window. He blinked, nodded, then shrugged. "I'll fix it tomorrow." And just like that, he turned around and went back upstairs. That was it. No questions, no concern, no, "Are you okay, Violet?" Just one solid dad-shaped sigh and 47 steps back into irrelevance. A brick flew into our home, and his biggest concern was rescheduling it into his weekend chores. Love that for us. The note was still in my hoodie pocket. I hadn't looked at it again. Couldn't. It felt radioactive, like unfolding it one more time might trigger some FBI-level alarm system Marlene had implanted in the drywall. My hand itched just thinking about it. I waited until noon, Marlene's sacred sleeping hours, then slipped into the backyard. Our yard isn't much. Just a slab of grass, 3 haunted lawn chairs, and 1 plastic flamingo I swear moves on its own. I ducked behind the shed and finally opened the note again. The handwriting was weirdly neat. too perfect, like it had been traced. Block letters, evenly spaced. No signature. I know what you did, and so does she. That was it. No details. No date. No context. Just ominous murder vibes energy straight from a Lifetime movie. I mean, I haven't done anything. Not anything criminal. Not anything recent. Not anything that would justify a freaking brick through the window. I don't have enemies. I don't even have friends. Unless you count the raccoon that occasionally raids our trash like it's his own personal buffet. But that's the thing. The letter wasn't meant to explain. It was meant to rattle, and it did. Hard. For the rest of the day, I walked around like I was waiting for a piano to drop on my head. Every floor creak made me flinch. Every vibration from my phone made me jump. And every glance from Marlene felt just a second too long. Like maybe, just maybe, she knew. I thought I was paranoid. Until dinner. That's when she looked up from her organic kale and control issues salad, tilted her head, and said with a grin that didn't touch her eyes, "You've been awfully quiet today, Violet. Got something you need to confess." And I swear to God she winked. I didn't answer. Just stared at her across the table like I was trying to read subtitles that didn't exist. Her fork paused midair, like she was savoring the suspense more than the food, which for the record smelled like steamed grass and tasted worse. My dad, as usual, didn't even look up, just shoveled mashed potatoes into his mouth like calories were the only thing he owed this family. Marlene chewed slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. I'd seen this look before. The one that says, "I already know. I just want to see how you'll squirm." It worked. I squirmed. I excused myself before she could launch into whatever emotional ambush she had loaded in the chamber. My stomach was in knots, but not from nerves, from dread. The kind that makes you question every text you've ever sent, every door you forgot to lock, every truth you thought was safe. I locked myself in the bathroom and checked my phone. No messages. No weird numbers. No anonymous threats. I checked under the sink, behind the toilet, even inside the vent, like I was expecting to find a hidden camera or a wiretap or a freaking voice-activated Marlene. Nothing. Still, something was off. I felt it again when I opened the cabinet to grab toothpaste and saw it sitting there. My diary. Let me clarify. I do not keep my diary in the bathroom. I'm not that weird, and I definitely don't leave it unlocked. Yet there it was, right between the mouthwash and the expired Advil. Like someone had gone through it. Like someone wanted me to know they went through it. My hands were shaking when I picked it up. I flipped through the pages, skimming for evidence of intrusion. And then I saw it. A single page torn halfway out. The only one I'd ever written about my stepbrother. I hadn't seen him in 3 years. Marlene's golden child, her real son. He'd come home one summer from college looking like he'd swallowed an entire gym and a bottle of Axe body spray. He smiled at me like we had a secret, like I was a project he couldn't wait to dismantle. I was 16. It wasn't violent, not technically, but it wasn't okay either. And I never told anyone. I just wrote it down in that one entry, every uncomfortable touch, every joke that wasn't a joke, every glance that lasted too long while Marlene pretended not to see. And now that page was gone. Someone had read it. Someone had removed it. And now someone was sending bricks through windows and notes that said, "I know what you did, and so does she." That she? I was starting to think it was Marlene. And if she knew, God help me. The next morning I woke up at 5:47 a.m. to the soothing sound of Marlene vacuuming directly outside my door. Not just vacuuming, violently bumping the vacuum head against my door frame like it owed her money. I stayed perfectly still, face smushed into the pillow, pretending I didn't hear her passive-aggressive cleaning symphony. This was her thing. When she couldn't yell without waking my dad, she'd go full domestic warfare, slamming cabinet doors, scraping the mop bucket across tile like she was summoning a demon. Passive aggression, but make it theatrical. I didn't take the bait. Eventually she moved on to terrorize the downstairs rugs, and I slipped out of bed. I needed air. Not fresh air, emotional air. Mental air, the kind you only get when you're far enough away from someone that their perfume doesn't stick to your hair and their voice stops echoing in your skull. So I did what any self-respecting escape artist with no car and exactly $12 to her name would do. I walked to the library, It's 24 minutes away if you take the shortcut behind the retirement home and don't mind hopping 2 fences and pretending you're not trespassing on government property. Worth it. Nobody bothers you at the library. Nobody expects anything. And, more importantly, there's air conditioning and free Wi-Fi, which makes it basically a 5-star resort compared to my house. I posted up in the back corner near the dusty old encyclopedias nobody touches unless they're trying to cosplay the 90s. I opened my laptop, logged in, and started Googling the most paranoid, overdramatic search terms you've ever seen. How to tell if someone is spying on you. Diary page missing someone broke in. Signs your stepmother is an actual sociopath. Then I deleted my search history immediately because, duh, I've seen enough crime shows to know that's how they get you. I tried to convince myself it was all just coincidence. Maybe the page tore on its own. Maybe the brick was random. Maybe Marlene was just being her usual malicious Disney stepmom self. Not some psychological puppet master playing 4D chess with my trauma. But then I remembered the wink. And the way she'd asked if I had something to confess. And the vacuum. God, the vacuum. It wasn't proof. But it didn't feel like nothing. I stayed at the library until my stomach started growling loud enough to echo off the nonfiction section. I didn't want to go home, but I didn't have a choice. I had exactly one granola bar left in my drawer and a mountain of laundry waiting for me that Marlene had conveniently renamed Character Development. But as I packed up and left, I spotted someone watching me from across the parking lot. Not Marlene, not even someone familiar. A man, hoodie, sunglasses, just standing there. And when I looked straight at him, he didn't look away. He smiled, like he knew me. I walked home fast, not running, but that paranoid half-speed power walk, where every sound feels like a footstep, and every parked car looks like it might have someone crouched behind it. I kept checking over my shoulder like I was in a low-budget thriller, which felt about right considering my life had recently turned into a script no one sane would greenlight. By the time I reached our block, Hoodie Man was nowhere in sight. Maybe he never followed me, maybe he was just some random guy, or maybe he was the one who threw the brick, read my diary, and smiled like we were co-conspirators in a crime I didn't even know I committed. I didn't mention any of it to Marlene, obviously. I walked through the front door like everything was fine and the last 48 hours hadn't turned my reality into a paranoia smoothie. She was already waiting in the kitchen, sipping something green and suspicious looking from a mason jar, like she'd just returned from her weekly coven meeting. Without even looking up from her phone, she said, "You're late. The recycling's full and the cat box smells like sin." We don't even have a cat. I didn't argue. I went straight to the laundry room, tossed in a load of towels, and locked the door behind me under the pretense of folding. But I didn't fold anything. I just sat there on the cold tile floor, trying to quiet the panic buzzing behind my ribs. My phone buzzed. No name. Just a number. A text. "You haven't told her? Why not?" My chest locked up. I stared at the screen so long I forgot to breathe. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I didn't even know what they were talking about. 5 minutes later, another message came in. "If you don't, I will. She deserves to know. She's your mother, isn't she?" And that was the moment everything clicked into place with an awful kind of clarity. Not clarity like enlightenment. Clarity like a head-on collision you see coming a second too late. They thought Marlene was my real mom. Someone out there believed I was protecting her, hiding something for her, that whatever I did, she was the one I was trying to shield. I almost laughed. Really. Because if anyone deserved to be shielded from anything in this house, it was me. And then it hit me. What if this was all some kind of mistake? What if they had the wrong Violet? What if I was just a placeholder in someone else's mess? Or worse, what if I wasn't? Because suddenly I remembered something from 3 years ago. Something I hadn't thought about since the summer my stepbrother came home. And for the first time since this all started, I wasn't just scared. I was guilty. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that message. "She's your mother, isn't she?" Looping through my brain like it had taken up permanent residence. I kept wondering who sent it, why they thought I was hiding something, and what kind of sick misunderstanding had led to all of this. Or worse, what if it wasn't a misunderstanding at all? By 3 a.m., I was back in the laundry room, sitting cross-legged on top of the dryer like some kind of feral laundry goblin, scrolling through every contact in my phone. Nothing useful, no weird names, no unknown numbers, until I checked my deleted messages. There it was. A deleted conversation from 2 weeks ago. Just one message. You should be careful what you write down. I hadn't even registered it at the time. I must have thought it was spam or some vague threat from a debt collector. But now, it felt like the opening line of something bigger, something premeditated. I needed help. Real help. Not the kind you get from watching YouTube tutorials on how to tell if you're being stalked by your own trauma. I needed someone who didn't think I was being dramatic, which meant, unfortunately, I had to call the one person who was guaranteed to be nosy enough to get involved, my ex-best friend Haley. We hadn't spoken in over a year. Not since the day Marlene told me Haley was a bad influence. And my dad casually agreed, like Haley had handed me a crack pipe instead of just a second Red Bull. But desperate people make bad choices. And right now, I was in full chaos mode. She answered on the second ring. Violet? Hey, I said, and immediately regretted everything. Okay, wow, I thought you were dead or in a cult. Or dead because of a cult. Still pending, I said. Listen, can we meet? I know it's weird, but I really need to talk to someone. She didn't hesitate. Not even a beat. You free in an hour? I met her at the old coffee shop near the gas station. The one with the broken O and the sign that's been stuck spelling calf fee since 2019. She was already there when I arrived, legs crossed, phone in hand, looking exactly like the version of me that might have existed in another life. One where I wasn't a walking cautionary tale with a stepmother straight from an HR training video. She raised an eyebrow as I slid into the booth. You look like someone who's either committed a crime or just found out they were adopted. Option 3, I said. Someone committed a crime. I just don't know who or why, or what it has to do with me. I told her everything. The brick, the note, the missing diary page, the texts, the hoodie guy, even the thing about my stepbrother. Though I kept it vague, like some terrible half-confession I hadn't fully earned the right to tell. She didn't laugh. She didn't scoff. She just listened. Then she leaned forward and said something that chilled me more than any message ever could. Vi, what if this isn't about what you did? I blinked. What do you mean? What if it's about what she did, and they think you're covering for her? And suddenly the text made sense. The surveillance, the misdirected guilt, they thought I was protecting Marlene. But I wasn't. I was barely surviving her. Which meant someone else out there knew more, and they were just waiting for me to crack. Haley's theory rattled around in my skull all the way home. I kept thinking about the messages. She deserves to know. She's your mother, isn't she? And how damn sure they sounded. Whoever this person was, they didn't think they were threatening me. They thought they were pressuring me to come clean, like we were both on the same team, and I was just too scared to play my part. But here's the problem. If I'm the decoy in someone else's disaster, what the hell did Marlene do? I got home around 6. Marlene was in the living room, barefoot in that aggressively spiritual yoga pose she always pretends she doesn't know looks like a cult ritual. She didn't say anything, just glanced at me like she could smell my secrets. I didn't engage. I went straight to the garage. If there was anything to find, anything she was hiding, it had to be out there. The attic was off limits and the basement was just a glorified spider sanctuary, but the garage was her sacred dumping ground. Old boxes. Donation bins that never actually got donated. Random locked drawers labeled seasonal, even though they hadn't been opened since Obama was in office. I started digging. At first, it was just junk. Photo albums, Christmas lights, a yoga ball that hadn't seen inflation since 2015. But then I found a box marked Greg Office. Greg is my dad. He hasn't had an office since before the pandemic. Inside were old receipts, tax forms, a coffee mug shaped like a fish, and a stack of letters, handwritten, folded neatly, yellowing like they'd been there a while. Every one of them was from my real mom, my actual mom, the one Marlene never talked about. The one who died when I was 10 and what I'd always been told was a freak car accident on a rainy night after she'd supposedly lost control on the freeway. Only, there was a letter in that box dated 2 weeks before she died. And it wasn't written to my dad. It was written to me. The handwriting was rushed, panicked. And it wasn't the kind of thing a mom writes casually. Violet, if anything happens to me, if I'm not there to explain, just know I tried. I tried to protect you. But she's smart, and people believe her. Even your dad. I don't know what she's capable of anymore. I'm so sorry. My breath caught. My hands went numb. She wasn't talking about the weather. She was talking about Marlene. I shoved the letters back in the box, heart pounding so hard it made my vision flicker. Because suddenly, none of this was paranoia. None of it was misunderstanding. Someone out there knew something, and they were waiting for me to find out. But now I had a new problem. Because if Marlene found out I had this letter, I wasn't just in danger, I was next. I didn't sleep. Again. At this point, I wasn't even tired. I was something past tired. That numb, floating stage where you stop feeling like a person and start operating like a barely functioning smoke detector. Just beeping at irregular intervals, warning everyone about a fire you can't put out. The letter changed everything. My mom hadn't just died. She'd known something, feared something, about Marlene. And now, I had her final warning in my backpack, zipped between a half-eaten protein bar and a pencil I borrowed in 9th grade, and never returned. I needed to talk to Haley, but I also needed to think, which is hard to do when you're living in the same house as a woman who might have orchestrated a death and definitely knows how to weaponize a slow blink. So I texted Haley one word: urgent. We met behind the dollar store next to a broken vending machine that only sold off-brand soda and bees. I handed her the letter without saying anything. Her face changed as she read it. Less surprise, more horror, like the puzzle she'd been casually solving just dropped a new corner piece soaked in gasoline. She knew, Haley whispered. Your mom knew, and nobody listened. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. And now someone else knows I found this. Someone's been watching. Haley didn't hesitate. You need to leave. I can't just vanish, I said. Where would I go? My dad won't believe me. He's practically glued to her aura at this point. Then we make him believe you. And just like that, a plan formed. A reckless, possibly illegal plan, but one that actually made my heart beat in something other than panic. Haley had an old camcorder from her film class days. We'd use it. Get proof. Not the kind you tell someone about, the kind you show. Real time, can't deny it proof. We waited until midnight. Then we broke into the attic. It wasn't hard. Marlene was a light sleeper, but also a wine sleeper, and she'd polished off her organic self-care blend around 10. I crept past her room, feeling like a ghost in my own house, and opened the creaky attic door as slow as humanly possible. Haley followed with the camera. Inside, dust, cobwebs, the usual. But then, we found a locked chest. Old, wooden, heavy. We didn't have the key, but we had a hammer. We pried it open, holding our breath. Inside, photos, documents, and a red leather notebook. The first page said, Insurance policy pending. Greg's signature needed. Accidental death clause active until 2010. 2010. The year my mom died. Haley's eyes met mine. You don't take out a policy like this unless you know something's going to happen. And then, from downstairs, we heard it. A creak, followed by footsteps. She was awake. And she knew we were up there. We froze. I don't mean paused. I mean that kind of frozen where your limbs feel like concrete and your brain short-circuits so hard you forget how to breathe. 1 second we were crouched over a chest of evidence, and the next, we were two terrified statues waiting for the devil in sweatpants to climb the attic ladder. The footsteps stopped right below us. Then came the sound of her voice, soft, syrupy, and absolutely bone-chilling. Violet, sweetheart, are you up there? Haley's hand gripped my arm. I could feel her shaking, and it somehow steadied me. I didn't answer. Marlene waited a beat, then two. Then we heard the chair being dragged across the floor. She was climbing up. I snatched the notebook and stuffed it down my hoodie. Haley grabbed the camera. We backed up into the farthest corner of the attic, behind an old dresser that smelled like mold and lost time. I didn't know what we were going to do. Hide? Jump through the roof? Wing it and hope she suddenly took up meditation and forgiveness? The trapdoor creaked open. A sliver of her face appeared in the dark. Eyes first, sharp, alert, calculating. Then the corner of her mouth. She didn't look surprised. She looked prepared. "What are we doing, girls?" she said softly. Like we were kids caught sneaking cookies instead of, uncovering her murder-adjacent filing system. Haley moved first. She raised the camera and hit record. That's when something in Marlene's expression shifted. Not fear, just irritation. The mask slipped a little, and underneath was the real her. Cold, practiced, and furious. "You don't know what you're doing," she said, her voice flattening. "That notebook isn't what you think." "So explain it," Haley shot back, her voice shaking but steady enough. Marlene climbed one step higher. "You want drama? You want pain? I've cleaned up more messes in this house than you'll ever understand. Your mother, she was unstable. She ruined things. She wanted to leave with you, Violet, take you away. But Greg wouldn't allow it. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the attic." "What do you mean, wouldn't allow it?" I asked, barely recognizing my own voice. Marlene smiled. But it was the kind of smile people give you before pushing you off a cliff. "He chose me. And you stayed. That's all that matters." That's when Haley did the smartest thing anyone's done in this entire mess. She turned the camera toward me and whispered, "Run." I didn't ask questions. I bolted down the ladder, out the front door, and down the street like my life depended on it. Because it did. 10 minutes later, Haley and I were standing inside the police station lobby, both of us out of breath, adrenaline in our ears, notebook in one hand, and a camera full of footage in the other. And when the officer asked why we were there, I didn't hesitate. "I think my stepmother killed my mom, and I think I can prove it. She didn't get away with it. She won't. And for the first time since I was 10 years old, I'm not scared anymore.